Hello.
Hi. Yeah.
Hallo.
Bonjour. We're gonna present Cheryl Buckley's article, Made in Patriarchy.
I can go first.
Yay!
First, let's talk a little bit about her. She's a British design historian whose research has been based on feminist approach to design history. She focuses mainly on Britain from the Victorian era to the present day. Her research centers on the relationship between feminist theory and design history. She studied art and architecture before mastering in design history from Newcastle University in 1982. She then worked as a professor of design history at Northumbria University before transferring to Brighton to become a professor of fashion and design history. While teaching, she was also working on her research and published different things. First, she co-founded the journal Visual Culture in Britain. Then, she chaired the Design History Society before becoming editor-in-chief of its journal, the Journal of Design History. She also wrote 3 books, Potters and Paintresses, in which she discusses the method by which women artists have successfully negotiated their professional lives. Then she wrote Fashioning the Feminine, in which she reviewed British fashion interaction with both feminism and femininity since the 80s. Finally, she wrote Designing Modern Britain, in which she surveyed British design between 1890 and 2001, encompassing architecture, interior design, poetry, textile, and fashion.
The aim of this paper is an attempt to pinpoint some of the key debates that have emerged in design history, specifically in Britain, concerning the role of women in design, and attempts to analyze how women in a patriarchal context interact with design and how they, as designers, practitioners, theorists, consumers, historians, and objects of representation are being recorded in design history. Buckley states that women's influence in design is ignored and left out of history, not only in the past but also the present. The neglect is not accidental but fully purposeful and can be pointed to specific historiographic methods against women. These methods, selection, classification, and prioritization of types of design, categories of designers, distinct styles and movements, different modes of production, all fundamentally go against women and lead to exclude them from history. Cheryl Buckley writes that many of her thoughts are based on feminist theory. To discover the history of women in design, to expose its underlying values, assumptions, and prejudices, is to understand that the way women artists are recorded and described is crucial to the accurate cataloging of design history and moving forward in the design world. Ultimately, women in design, too, are limited in expansion and independence because of
Design historians who examine women's role in design must acknowledge that women in the past and women today are placed within the context of patriarchy. There is a very dependent relationship between patriarchy and capitalism. They both have the ability to reshape and reformulate a society. In a patriarchy, men's activities are valued more highly than women's. For example, industrial design has been given higher status than knitted textiles. In an advanced industrial society in which culture is valued above nature, male roles are seen as being more cultural than natural. Female roles are seen as the reverse of this, as a consequence of their biological capacity to reproduce. Women are considered to possess sex-specific skills that determine their design abilities. They are apparently dexterous, decorative, and meticulous. This means that women are considered to be naturally suited to certain areas of design, such as jewellery making, embroidery, and weaving. Fashion design, on the other hand, is appropriated by male designers because the so-called design process involves creative imagination and the aggressive business and marketing skills that are a part of the male stereotype. It is crucial that design historians recognise the patriarchal bias of sexual division in labour. They also must acknowledge that women and their designs occupy the space left by men, not the space that they are best suited to. By their failure to acknowledge patriarchy, design historians ignore both the women designing outside of mainstream industry and those few who have found employment within it. The objects women produce have been consumed rather than preserved for their inherent value. To this day, design historians have esteemed the creators of mass-produced objects more worthy of analysis. They have literally argued that design history is a study of mass-produced objects. With this view, craft production gets completely excluded. This is problematic as, for many women, craft modes of production were the only means of production available, as they had no access to the factories of the new industrial system or the associated design schools.
Probably the most historically neglected group within design is the consumer. It is no accident that the consumer often gets presented as female. Two basic ideas inform the designer's assumptions about women consumers. First, women's primary role is domestic service. Second, domestic appliances make women's lives easier. These assumptions are based on the constitutions of the patriarchy. Design historians have played their part in reinforcing women's position in the sexual division of labor.
Historians have analysed the designs in terms of the designer's ideas and intentions rather than a social product, thereby reducing a design to the history of its designer. This is problematic for women because creativity has been appropriated as an ideological component of masculinity. As Philippa Goodall has observed, we live in a world designed by men. It is not for nothing that the expression man-made refers to a vast range of objects that have been fashioned from physical material. The theory of modernism has had an enormous impact on design history by emphasising both formal and technical innovation and experimentation as the significant features of design. Fashion, for example, as an important area of design, is trivialised because of its association with women. It is seen as marginal design activity because it caters to women's socially constructed needs and desires. For these reasons, design historians have tended to avoid the study of fashion. We must critically assess the set of rules that the patriarchy has placed upon design to understand why design historians have excluded women from the history books. Then we are able to develop a history that does not automatically exclude women. This history must acknowledge the various locales where design operated and the various groups involved with its productions and consumption. Finally, historians must develop and expand the body of historical research which relates to design by women.